When China became powerful, the world became nervous. Factories moved to China, militaries watched China, countries feared China's rise. But something strange is happening with India. India is also rising rapidly. Its economy is growing, its military is expanding, its global influence is increasing. And yet, the world reacts very differently to India compared to China. Why? Why does China's rise feel threatening to many countries, while India's rise often feels more acceptable, sometimes even welcomed? Because this is not only about economics, it is about trust, fear, politics, culture, geography, history, and the type of power countries project to the world. And understanding this difference may explain the future balance of power in the 21st century. China rose through control. China's rise was one of the fastest in human history. Hundreds of millions escaped poverty. Mega cities appeared almost overnight. Factories exploded across the country. The world was shocked by China's speed. But China's system was very different. Highly centralized, state controlled, disciplined, fast moving. And for many years, that system looked unstoppable. But over time, another feeling started growing globally: fear. Countries began worrying about economic dependence, technology control, surveillance, trade pressure, and military expansion. Especially after China became more assertive internationally. South China Sea tensions increased, Taiwan tensions increased, border disputes intensified, trade wars with America exploded, and suddenly China's rise stopped looking only economic. It started looking strategic and geopolitical. That changed how the world reacted. Now compare that with India. India's rise looks slower, messier, chaotic sometimes. Democracy creates arguments, elections creates uncertainty, states fight with the center, policies move slower. But strangely, this also makes India feel more familiar to many democracies. Because India's system looks less controlled, and that matters psychologically. Countries often fear power they cannot influence or predict. China's political system feels highly centralized and difficult for outsiders to understand. India feels more open: noisy media, court battles, opposition politics, state governments challenging Delhi. To some foreign governments and investors, this feels safer long term, even if India is less efficient in some areas. Because democracies create friction openly instead of hiding it, and that changes global perception massively. The world doesn't want another China. Now, here is the biggest reason India benefits geopolitically. The world already experienced dependence on China once, and many countries do not want that again. COVID exposed global vulnerabilities. Supply chains collapsed, factories shut down, electronics shortages spread worldwide. Governments suddenly realized something dangerous. The world depended too heavily on one country, China. And after that, global strategy changed completely. Now countries want diversification, not total dependence. That's where India enters the story. India is not replacing China completely. That is unrealistic. But India is becoming part of the global balancing strategy. Companies are shifting manufacturing, supply chains are diversifying, technology partnerships are increasing because countries want alternatives, and India became one of the biggest alternatives available at scale. Ironically, China's own success created the opportunity for India. India also tells a different story. China's rise was built heavily around state power, manufacturing dominance, and centralized control. India's rise sells a different image: a democratic giant, a young population, technological talent, open market, digital innovation. India presents itself less like a challenger trying to replace the world order, and more like a country trying to benefit from it while reshaping parts of it. That is a major difference. Even India's diplomacy feels different. India works with America but also buys Russian oil, competes with China but still trades heavily with it, joins the Quad but avoids military alliances. This creates an image of strategic flexibility rather than ideological confrontation, and many countries find that easier to accept. Because India does not currently project itself as a country trying to dominate globally, at least not openly. But India's rise also makes some countries nervous. Now here is the twist. Not everyone is comfortable with India's rise either. Because as India grows stronger, it also becomes more assertive. Border tensions with China increased. India is expanding naval power. Military modernization is accelerating. Digital regulations are tightening. Economic nationalism is growing in some sectors. And some countries also worry about religious tensions, democratic backsliding debates, internet restrictions, and political polarization inside India. So India's rise is not viewed as completely risk-free globally. But compared to China, many countries still see India as less threatening strategically. Especially because India lacks China's level of global military projection and centralized economic dominance, at least for now. The biggest difference may be demographics. Now look at demographics. China is aging rapidly. Its workforce is shrinking. Population decline has started. Economic slowdown fears are increasing. India is the opposite. India is still young, one of the youngest major countries on earth. That creates a completely different kind of future story. Because over the next 20 years, many countries may face worker shortages. India may face worker surplus. And this changes how investors and governments think long term. Today, global companies increasingly see India not only as a market, but as a workforce, a technology base, a manufacturing alternative, and a future growth engine. That creates optimism around India's rise that China no longer generates in the same way. The real difference is emotional. But honestly, the biggest difference may not be economic or military. It may be emotional. China's rise often created fear of dominance. India's rise currently creates curiosity. China was often seen as disciplined, powerful, efficient, but intimidating. India is often seen as messy, complex, democratic, emotional, creative, and unpredictable. And this changes global psychology enormously. Countries do not react only to power, they react to how power feels. And right now, India's rise feels less like a takeover and more like the arrival of another major player inside an already existing system that may become India's biggest geopolitical advantage. At the end of the day, India and China are both rising powers, but they are rising in completely different ways. China rose through speed, control, and industrial dominance. India is rising through demographics, technology, global partnerships, manufacturing diversification, and democratic complexity. And the world is reacting differently because the world itself has changed. Countries no longer want total dependence on one superpower. They want balance, and India may become one of the biggest balancing power of the 21st century. But history also teaches something important. The higher a country rises, the more global pressure it attracts, and India is now entering that phase. So the real question is not, will India become powerful? The real question is, can India rise globally without creating the same fear and geopolitical backlash that China eventually faced? Because that may decide whether India becomes just another powerful country or something far more influential in the future world order.